At first glance, it'd be easy to take Kane Lynch 2 Dog Days as just another third-person action shooter of the Xbox 360 era, a period absolutely replete with such games. To be honest, that description is certainly true of its predecessor, Kane Lynch Deadman, but the sequel is something more, something special, unique, and worth remembering. Having just passed its 15-year anniversary, the most famed aspect of Kane Lynch 2 has aged well. Revisiting it briefly for its anniversary, it's obvious that it's an aged shooter of a bygone era, with all of the mechanical foibles that framing brings. But this is also a game that does and says things that few in the decade and a half since have attempted. Much of this is about the aesthetic of Dog Days' presentation. Broadly speaking, it's shot in a way intended to be candid. The camera shakes like it's being held by some poor spectator battling a relentless avalanche of adrenaline. In a time when games were pushing for an increasingly cinematic look, Kane Lynch's bloodied misadventures aren't shot or framed with any heroic portraiture. At the same time, presentational touches suggest the curation of the footage. Colours blow out as if you're viewing the action off a worn-down VHS tape, and techniques are deployed to make your interactive decisions in gameplay infect the visuals. Looking directly into the brightest neon lights or burning incandescent bulbs makes the footage flare. An explosion doesn't just fulminate in Kane Lynch 2's world, it rips through that camera lens too, the footage warping and distorting as a result, and it will take viewers of a certain age and cinematic disposition back to the days of trading video nasties like Faces of Death and Cannibal Holocaust.
Lynch, I need you to calm down.
Audio will outright cut out from time to time or distort amidst the most intense action. The shakiness of the camera sells the chaos of events. Weapons can routinely feel inaccurate, for instance, encouraging you to spray indiscriminately. All of this tells a story about this world, Kane, Lynch, and their situation. The most graphic violence is presented with a pixelated blur, like some sort of overworked sensor is desperately intervening in real time to prevent you from getting too grossed out. You'll squeeze the trigger to blow someone's head off, and instead of carefully modelled ultra-realistic gore spluttering out, that head just disappears behind a mesh of pixelated suppression. As is often the case with such censorship, the way your imagination fills in the gaps is far more visceral and brutal than anything Kane Lynch 2's developers could have cooked up themselves. Back in 2010, Kane Lynch 2 was one of those Marmite games. Some people understood and appreciated what it was shooting for, more than others. Some failed to see its merit and were just pretty disgusted by what it presented. You can look at review scores from back in the day to see this. Eurogamer itself awarded Dog Days a 4 out of 10 and compared it unfavourably to Army of Two: The 40th Day, another co-op shooter of the time. But here's the interesting wrinkle now. Army of Two is largely forgotten, but a certain stripe of sicko still speaks fondly of Kane Lynch 2, revealing the game now as some sort of cult classic. Viewed through a modern lens, one highlight of Dog Days is how it manages to be both unique from and reflective of its era in the same breath, which is difficult to do. A lot of that reflection is in the violence. You can't look at Kane Lynch 2's cover-based third-person combat without considering Gears of War, right? The setting too is loosely evocative of Stranglehold's bloodied Hong Kong gang wars, but where those games are simply about being awesome, chainsawing through aliens and slow-mo John Woo flipping one's way to mass murder with the occasional bit of ham-fisted introspection in a cutscene, Kane Lynch 2 is something else. You don't feel like an awesome badass playing this game. In fact, you often feel quite dirty. This can almost entirely be credited to the game's aesthetic and that utterly genius choice of camera. This game genuinely appears to be presented from the viewpoint of a third person who stands astride the titular anti-heroes, quaking and cowering, squeamish as they spill pint after pint of blood on the streets of Shanghai. Somehow this combines with the video nasty aspect and draws the player in. You perceive being closer to everything taking place on screen, gameplay and cutscene both. The interactive violence is unpleasant, even if the action is scintillating. The narrative isn't great though, an escalating cycle of suffering and torment that only gets worse as the story wears on. Every chapter delivers another narrative fist to the gut. It grinds on you, and Kane Lynch 2's 4-hour runtime feels like an admission of the fact. Any more of this horror show would be too much. The length of 2 films, experienced over a stomach-knotting night or two, is perfect. So that's what it is. This differed from many games of the day. Army of Two, The 40th Day, the other major co-op third-person shooter released in 2010, is double the length. Kane Lynch 2 doesn't feel deficient though. It's the right amount of game for the story being told, and there didn't seem to be as much hand-wringing over that as we see today with shorter games like Mafia: The Old Country. That difference slots into a broader theme, which is that there's something to be said about Dog Days in relation to other games of the time. The Xbox 360 and PS3 era was filled with ultra-violent shooters pushing boundaries. This game is in many ways the most ultra-violent and unpleasant of them all, but it takes no pride in it. These protagonists are not awesome dudes. They're horrible, in fact. In this sense, a gauntlet is casually laid down, and a commentary is made on the nature of adult games. Yes, Kane and Lynch are mass murderers, but this game is honest about that, and not in a way that is cynical. They have body counts akin to those of Nathan Drake, Marcus Phoenix, and whoever else, but unlike those guys, they're not awe-inspiring heroes. They're real pieces of shit. In this, Kane Lynch 2 stands up alongside Spec Ops: The Line as a shooter of this era that actually had something to say about the inherent violence in much of gaming, all without a smirking quip or badass brofist in sight. Making something so relentlessly brutal and miserable is a choice, and it speaks to IO Interactive's strengths as a developer, both then and now. Agent 47 has always been a more positive sort of anti-hero, carefully bumping off billionaire assholes and warmongering generals before they can do even more harm, all while living in a fantastical and beautiful world. But Kane and Lynch are something else entirely. When you're done playing Dog Days, there's not the same sense of satisfaction as other games. If anything, there'll be a sense of relief that the cavalcade of misery is over. You're free of these characters at least, even if they aren't free of their disconsolate lives. At the same time, like some of the best disquieting horror movies, the experience is still fun, albeit the sort of fun that leaves you with a vaguely queasy feeling, like the one you get after watching the Terrifier movies. Kane Lynch 2 Dog Days is a totally unique experience. It's brutal, grim, and strangely gripping. The fact it remained so 15 years after release, with not another big-budget game like it in sight, perfectly underscores why it is so special. So, happy 15th anniversary to Kane Lynch 2. Except nothing about this pair is happy, so maybe we should be wishing them a miserable anniversary instead.
Okay. You done? Now come on, let's talk.
Now is a great time to score some incredible games through Humble Choice. Live now through to October 7th, you can grab WWE 2K25, Destiny 2 Legacy Collection, The Plucky Squire, Return to Monkey Island, and more. Whether you're building up your backlog or discovering something new, this is the perfect time to pick up these fan favourites. Plus, every purchase supports a good cause, with this month's featured charity being Team Rubicon. Get a curated mix of PC games every month, all for just £11.49 a month.